Welcome to next lecture. I would like to warmly welcome our guest and speaker, Dr. Maxim Orlovsky. Exactly, thank you. Yes, you understood well. Mr. Orlovsky is, or Dr. Orlovsky, sorry, you have to keep the academic habits. Is our speaker from previous year. And last year, Maxim has introduced us his research about artificial intelligence and how to make it independent on any authoritarian pressure, I would say. And this year, Maxim is gonna talk about following topic, which puts together other new technologies and make some future vision of how our potential digital immortality could seem like. Maxim is a long-term researcher, and he established a company focusing at decentralized technologies and structures based in Switzerland, and the company is called Pandora Core. And I would like to pass the word, and after the talk, you can ask questions, of course. So,
thank you,
Mr. Orlovsky.
Today, I would like to talk about quite a complex topic. It's complex both from a technical and philosophical perspective, and it's very hard to discuss such matters of not going into some crazy science fiction or being even a bit scammy, because today all these words, digital immortality, and decentralization, ICO, blockchain, they're more and more oftenly used by people who try to raise some money for something. But my point here is not rather review the way we can achieve the digital immortality, but find how we can avoid a big troubles on the road forward to singularity. Who am I? Well, I have multiple backgrounds. The regional one, I'm neuroscientist, doing a neuroscientific research for many years, but I'm also a hacker from, well, much even earlier, probably from a school time. And I used even to write some viruses, and later I decided to go into medicine because I was interested in a way the neural system and the brain works, how it can be broken in an efficient way. So I was also interested in machine learning for that reason, and just quite recently I became a Bitcoiner, understanding the value proposition that Bitcoin provides as a censorship-resistant money. So today, I'm joining all of those directions in the projects that we are doing at Pandora Core. We basically saying that we are trying to scale the future. And throughout the presentation, I will explain why I think this scalability is needed. Today, we see a lot of progress in different areas of technology. And first of all, a lot of things happens in the field of the life extension. Medical progress fighting not the death itself yet, but rather a million of reasons why somebody can die. Basically different aging diseases, different diseases of civilization, one by one is being fought. And probably with advance in genetics, we will see the constant increase of the life expectancy. So there is no big science fiction here. It already happens. And that's why people saying that there is a potential immortality, when it's not that you are not going to die. It's, asymptotical immortality. It's not that you are not going to die, but rather the medical progress will postpone your death basically ad infinitum. in the next 10 years, we will find a way to extend life for another 20 years. In the next 20 years, we will find a way to extend life for another 50 years, and so on and so forth. So it's coming, and it's not only about extending the life, but it's also about extending an intelligence. You already heard a lot probably about brain-computer interfaces, neurocomputer interfaces, and implants. I wouldn't be talking about that today. And with the better methods of research, with a functional magnetic resonance and tractography, we understand more and more about how the brain is actually functioning, providing a hope that at some point we will be able to grasp where the actual intelligence is coming from the neuroscientific background. And additionally to that, we have big developments in computing, like machine learning technology, quantum computing applied to biochemical studies. And together, that allows us to assemble the data and extract the knowledge from this data on genome, on proteome, which is basically how we express all our genes in proteins, and connectome, which is how the brain neurons are connected across the brain. This gives us a promise that at some point we will understand most of the causes of diseases and the death and mechanics of this thinking process. So eventually that leads us to this idea of immortality, which starts with asymptotic life extension that I just explained when we are fighting against aging, and up to potential immortality when we just don't have any causes of the death itself in terms of our biological body. It's still questionable, is it possible at all or not? But there is a lot of research and a lot of finding goes into this direction. And extension of our intelligence, promising at some point to allow us to transfer our personality, identity, intelligence into some non-biological substrates. So up to the non-biological immortality, where we can continue to live not as a biological bodies. So maybe it's a science fiction, but it's happening. Billions of dollars are spent on that. And actually, there is not a lot that people sitting in this room can do. We don't have that amount of researchers to drive investigation in the new therapy methods. We don't have access to billions of human genome data, which are required to run those investigations. We don't have access to supercomputers, to quantum computers. We basically have no resources to proceed in this direction. But we know that humanity does that. And basically, we probably can sit back and relax waiting with our constant life expectancy extension happening. Well, not really. And that's that is actually a topic of my talk. What is the problem there? Because it looks so smooth and nice today. But you can think that with these developments, people will become aware of this idea of immortality or very long life expectancy. So if humans fought wars for a promise of life after the death, can you imagine what will happen for a promise of life without a death? In order to move into the direction of immortality, and in terms, not even immortality itself, but the progress itself, we need a couple of prerequisites. And you all know them. They start with the ideas of free trade and not forced exchange or information disclosure by law requirements or regulations, not a licensing, and not a different taxation on importing. We need free and open research instead of bioethics, eco-activism, drug research and use regulations. And we need unbreakable private ownership of the data basically which requires privacy, and we need to be able to explicitly trade our own data, because it's not just about protection of privacy, it's also about you wouldn't be able to discover new methods of gene therapy without accessing billions of genome data. So you can't just prohibit companies from collecting the personal data. You have to allow the trade for the private data, so people will be selling their data, earning something in reward, and this is done not in a way of today we have with the GDPR regulations and the rest of them. So I'm just trying to explore this idea of what can happen for the promise of life without the death. Basically, from the one side, we have this progress, which I just have described, and this progress requires these different forms of free markets. And from the other, people are scared of the risks. They're scared, the government's scared of the risks, because basically they don't want people to live longer. It takes more for social care, it takes more for welfare, and it creates actually a lot of problems. And there are all other risks there related to gene therapy. So government usually exploit those risks to create fears and to put a basis to create regulations. I was just covering all those regulations that have already happened. And basically what it leads to the problems with the future progress. And while we have all these requirements for the progress, we have actually a prohibition for most of those things to happen by licensing, GDPR, and plenty of other regulatory stuff. Why? Because this is the matter of national security. You know this phrase. Access to the knowledge and technologies to produce the knowledge must be regulated. It is the opinion of the government because it can create threats to the national security like an atomic weapon, because if people will be promising to live without death, they can be exploited to different reasons and different fearful things, as government says. Usage of knowledge must be limited because of the social problems. We can't allow everybody to do whatever they want. And military force will be used to enforce those above. So it's not like, please don't do a research in this or that direction. It will be a government, it will be courts, it will be military forces applied to those who are doing different stuff. As today, you know already that even at smaller scale, if you do a medical research, you will be strictly regulated by bioethics, and if you will try to avoid those regulations, probably your laboratory will be destroyed, not yet by the governmental forces, by people who are driven by some crazy ideas of protecting animal life or something like that. So this knowledge will become classified. And why we still have a progress in all those areas? One of the main reasons for that is the internet. It is a great enabler, and we are very happy that this technology have gone into the wild, because it allows most of our knowledge exchange today, international trade. And unfortunately, the internet, while being a great enabler, provides no intrinsic means of the privacy. And that's why we are getting harder and harder push from the governments to censor it, to limit to national borders, and they are quite successful in doing that. So the idea is that wherever you will try to do something outside of the government which can create a threat to national security interests, like creating of advanced technology for life extension or artificial intelligence or whatever, your actions will be attributed to you, and you will be retributed for those actions with a force, and you wouldn't be able to do anything against that. So that's the thing that goes wrong with all that progress, is basically the progress becomes a private property of the government. And even large corporations, they're still kind of part of the government itself, because of different ways the actual politics and countries can control those corporations. There was a great talk last year by Smuggler. He presented this idea and definition of crypto-anarchism. And his point is that we need to break this sequence from the act to the punishment, from the public forces, just to make observation and attribution of the actions impossible because of the privacy technologies. So we can basically start fixing the internet, adding privacy into that. And it is not only privacy that is required. We also require an embedded economy that can't be stopped by the regulation. Basically, this economy will require uncensorable money. And we have Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is not the part of the stack of the internet protocols themselves. So it can be separated still. And we need to do that in a very decentralized way, which is really hard because even internet thought to be decentralized have a lot of centralized parts like domain name service structure. And how we can fix the internet? There are different ways and different ideas. I will start probably with the wrong one. These magical unicorns. The problem with that, the ideas are good, but there is no real research, and rather than research, just young people create some strange stuff which is constantly broken, and at the end of the day, it leads to more governance than less. Basically, all these projects for putting DAO governance or whatever basically defines a new tyranny of majority of people who will vote for something. And unfortunately, I don't have today time to cover that topic, but in fact, the democracy itself is contrary to capitalism and is contrary to freedom, because basically in democracy, a majority is able to force you to do something or not to do something. So these all democratic unicorn ideas, they are really magical. Fortunately, they do not work. There is a lot of reasons why they do not work, starting from, well, I wouldn't spend time on that. There is mystical tech, they're saying about sharding, Shardsphere, Serenity, Ethereum, Plasma, whatever. Sharding problem being researched and tried to solve by computer science in a computer science domain for 20 years, and now some students are aiming to solve it with plenty of other stuff altogether. Basically, the truth is that it's just high school science project plus billion-dollar marketing. And we cannot be afraid of that because it's not going to happen. Why it all started, these ideas of doing Ethereum? Because people were saying we can't program Bitcoin due to its limited functionality, so we have to invent something new. Is that really true? Well, let's look into what actually Bitcoin does. Bitcoin is a form of digital programmable hard money, which we all know, built of layers. The first one is a blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain, not arbitrary one, which serves the purpose of store of value. And the second one is a Lightning Network, which provides means of payment. This together renders Bitcoin as a unit of accounting, and these three properties, digital store of value, means of payment, and unit of accounting, makes Bitcoin a real digital programmable money. But there is more to Bitcoin than just the money. First of all, the Bitcoin blockchain layer can be used as economically secure, trustless timestamping and proof of publication system. Second, Lightning Network can be utilized in a way, it already provides onion message routing, that we can do and build economically incentivized private messaging systems. Completely private and protected with the money being paid for message delivery to Lightning Network nodes. And that's just a few examples of why we can talk about Bitcoin protocol and Lightning Network protocols, not just as a money or payment system, but as of new type of technological stack that can be compared to TCP/IP, but unlike TCP/IP, it has an embedded privacy and it has an embedded money in it. Again, I don't have a time to explain all those ideas in details today. I would just rather recommend you to listen to a talk of Giacomo Zucco. Just Google Giacomo Zucco LNP-BP, and he explains why LNP-BP is a new alternative to the internet approach comparing to less private TCP/IP. So a lot of new developments happens in this sphere, and me and my company, we are participating in a number of projects, starting from the building private digital assets. The main word here is private, not public like ERC20, meaning that everybody can track the ownership publicly. On top of that, there is a decentralized exchange technology for asset and goods can be created on top of Lightning Network without a token. Storage and messaging with economic guarantees. So you can Google for a Storm project. Better sidechains, multi-party channels, and up to computing, including high-load forms of computing like machine learning. That's a Prometheus project. I will be really briefly covering technical aspects of these things, not to explain you how this thing works, but to give you understanding of what can be really done with such systems as Bitcoin and Lightning Network, and why I think that they can be technologies that can help us fix the internet and create all those free markets and ungoverned systems that can push the progress forward. There is a lot of technologies probably nobody really heard about being developed in Bitcoin community today. And with these technologies, we can do a lot of things that were promised by Ethereum's smart contracts, proof of stake, not on a blockchain level because nobody needs it, sharding and other stuff. So if you are interested in those, you can just write down and search and look for those pieces of technology. But all of them allow us to do everything that can imaginably be done for decentralized systems in a scalable and secure way, without doing ICOs, inventing new tokens, no token economies, and other stuff that will be regulated by SEC and traded on regulated exchanges. So we just need to use a bit of science there, not crypto magic. And the core components to build those systems are game theory for developing models, sustainable models. And again, when I'm talking about game theory, I'm not talking about token economy. I'm not talking about creating token, designing how it has to flow through. No, I'm talking about using money, which is Bitcoin, to settle a system where all relations can be settled in a trustless manner, having a Nash equilibrium. So I'm talking about a scientific game theory. Zero knowledge, which is one of the strongest tools we have today to build private systems. And different primitives of this LNP-BP technological stack, like complex escrowed contracts, Lightning Network use them. They can be HTLC-based or other forms. Multi-party payment channels with a partially signed Bitcoin transactions. Rich off-chain state with a client-side validation paradigm, which protects blockchain from growing in size indefinitely. So basically the idea is that data and state is not stored on the layer 1 in blockchain, they're stored on the clients, and by those parties, only by those parties who are involved in some economical game and economical system, but not by everybody in the world. So this promises us that we will be able to fix those problems of modern internet with this technology stack. And I will just run briefly through the details of those technologies. Off-chain rich state. We know that smart contracts, they do require more than just a list of accounts with the balances of them. Complex smart contracts should require a more complex functionality, but keeping data on blockchain doesn't scale. So the proper state should be stored somewhere above of it on the layer 2. And with this idea of client-side validation and deterministically defined cryptographic commitment history. We can build completely off-chain state histories like a DAG. You all heard about IOTA promises, but again, there is a trade-off between blockchain and DAG system. In blockchain, you have a global state, but you have a scalability problem. With the DAG systems, you don't have a scalability problem, but you have no global state. So the proper way of doing this is just use the layer 1 for a global state, but don't store the data there, and store the data but only by those who are interested in those data, but commit those data into the security model of the bottom blockchain layer. It is succinct, means the size of these proofs is about 0. You can use electrical curves cryptography to add information into the public keys without increasing the size of blockchain. It is very private because, again, the state is not in blockchain. Nobody other those who have these proofs of the state can know anything about it. Even miners, they can't see that this Bitcoin transaction has something more than just a Bitcoin transfer, because the state bound to this transaction is bound with a zero knowledge, and it can't be defined whether there is some information or assets or anything being passed with this Bitcoin transaction. So the miner incentives to censor transactions doesn't change. The use case for this technology are very broad, starting from digital assets, which we are doing in RGB project. Also, we are working on the way how you can even take Bitcoins themselves and put them into the state system off-chain, so adding another layer of privacy for Bitcoin payments. You can use it to store historically proven records that can be audited by third parties without any blockchain or corporate blockchain or permission blockchains being required for this case. And you can do a decentralized social media systems, starting from decentralized GitHub. I mean, not Git is decentralized itself, but all these push requests, pull requests, discussions, issues as a social media, they can be decentralized. I'm not saying that we need to decentralize Facebook, but because I don't know why we need it. But if somebody wants, you can do even that. And we are also using that in our protocol to do a state management in machine learning tasks. The ideas of this protocol comes from Peter Todd, who is also present here and will be giving a talk, but on a different topic. And it's now developed as a part of RGB project. So I propose everybody who is interested to Google for it, because basically I think that is the proper way forward for doing a proper smart contracts and proper economical systems, not a blockchain technology, but LNP-BP, Bitcoin-based technological stack. Another technology which is very important is probabilistically checkable proofs that can be used. It's a form of zero knowledge being known for decades. Again, it wasn't created by the blockchain community at all, fortunately. And it can be combined with escrowed smart contracts to prove some facts without exposing the original initial data. So you can prove to some party that you have something or you have computed something, and that party still don't see what you have done, but it can be argued that actually it was done in a correct way, or you really have those data available. It sounds like a solution even to data privacy thing, because you can do a genome research without asking everybody to provide their genome data, but instead for each of us computing something on our own genome and then collecting all those results together without exposing the actual genome data. It's a scalability technology, and today we use that for creation of data storage proof in decentralized storage and messaging protocol, and for computational integrity arguments in machine learning protocol. So all this technology, it's very well layered, I'm ending with this not interesting technological details and going to more philosophical questions. And they are built on top of Bitcoin, and you can basically create different new layers of decentralization, starting from data exchange, messaging, assets, and good tokenization storage on the layer 3. On top of that, you can build a free open trading system, computing, search facilities, and up to enabling research, artificial intelligence progress, and immortality as a result of this privacy, of this technological stack suited for privacy and open markets. So, by using cryptography to break the observation and attribution, we can really achieve a lot. And why we need this? Well, who wants to live forever? In a concentration camp? You see, the answer to those questions are different. Everybody and no one. So, we should not trade freedom for a security or sweet promises of some progress or something that somebody will give to us. Observation and attribution are claimed to be security measures taken by the governments, but in fact, they are anti-sovereignty and anti-progress measures. And sovereignty, self-sovereignty, individualism is the only sustainable way for achieving both security and the progress. That is the fact which I was trying to show through the presentation today. And I invite all of you to participate in breaking an attribution loop, the ultimate tool of the governments. So what we are building today with a crypto-anarchic society is a sequence of different sovereignty technologies, starting with Bitcoin as a digital money, adding a private digital assets to that, enhancing that with a pure privacy tools, Tor, client-side validation, state channel, onion routing, zero knowledge, building on top of that data sovereignty with a decentralized storage and not with a GDPR, and other technologies. I don't have even space to name all of them. And with that, with the data integrity and with the financial sovereignty, we start building a computational sovereignty, which we have a dedicated protocol here, and for which, and this all together will help us to build an immortality, not in a way that it will be controlled by a government, but in a way that it will be sovereign. So you will have a knowledge how to achieve something, and nobody will be able to take that knowledge from you. Additionally to that, of course, we need not only just a privacy and sovereignty technologies, but also a lot of biomedical and neurocomputer interface research on neurocomputer interfaces, which again probably not being wouldn't be done by a modern scientific institutions because of different bioethical regulations. So the rest of my time I would like to devote to the questions of machine learning and biomedical and neurocomputing research. So this protocol, I already mentioned it a couple of times. This protocol basically enables supercomputers, not in the cloud, but in a decentralized forms, paid with a Bitcoin, private and trustless. We spend a lot of resources on doing this research and creating this technology. I wouldn't spend time on technical details. It utilizes a lot of game theory, and basically we were able to fit all those different complex settlement schemes into Bitcoin transaction layer. So you don't need a Turing complete smart contracts or Ethereum. And with that, we hope that we can make a digital immortality true, because the way to build it is spend tens of years building sovereignty layers one by one, make machine learning uncensorable and distributed, which we try to achieve, because you wouldn't be able to do any modern research, any genetics, any biochemical drug research, a lot of things without using a machine learning at a very large scale. And we are also looking into biomedical and neurocomputer interfaces research that will be able to merge neural tissue with a computing. Do you know what it is? It is an NMDA receptor. which is present in the brain. Today, for modern processors architectures, 40 nanometers is the cutting edge, while this receptor, which can be probably treated as a sort of biotransistor, is less than 5 nanometers. So brains are more powerful than any modern processor because there is a lot of research. It's not a theory yet, it's hypothesis. They probably already suitable and able to utilize some form of quantum computing. It can be thousands of times larger than any modern CPU, GPU. It doesn't have any problems with cooling. Did you ever seen a processor of the size of the human brain? Well, it is impossible because there will be huge cooling problems. It is more resilient to environment because it is self-repairing. If you will smash processor with a hammer, it will be destroyed, while human can still survive and continue thinking sometimes. So the truth is that self-repairing mechanisms of the brain and neural tissue are magnitudes of all order larger than of any modern silicon processors. So we think that growing chips from neural tissue is actually the future. And it can help to solve a lot of problems in machine learning industry. And we think with all those tech that I was describing today, the event horizon is inevitable. We already have a censorship-resistant money in form of Bitcoin. We are building new private and free internet in the form of stack of these protocols that I have described. We are trying to create a world uncensorable, cheap supercomputing for doing machine learning. And we are working on some kind of radical AI research that can significantly enhance machine learning that we have today. It is very limited. And actually, it's not neuromorphic. So first of all, we need to create a new neuromorphic type architectures of cognitive architectures, and then to intermix hardware with a bioware. I don't know the proper word of saying that, but basically, if we are going to achieve some kind of immortality, we need to be able to enhance our cognitive abilities and to be able to interact with a world of computers and machines in a direct way. So we need to merge our worlds together. So this is an ultimate opt-out. We are aiming to fork the humanity. Parallel economy with uncensorable money and free trade, that is what's required for that future. We need an ultimate darkness of the privacy. We need to build a research outside of the mainstream government-controlled science with a bioethics committees and all that kind of stuff. Because you wouldn't be able to do all of that without opting out from the current system. And we need to work on the exponential increase of intelligence abilities, developing machine learning, using this machine learning to develop stronger forms of machine learning, to develop stronger forms, to merge that into our own intelligence until the exponential process will happen. And of course, our autonomous swarm weapon systems and asymmetric defense has to be developed as well, because without that, you will be forced by a government, by a military force, to comply to the regulations and not present a national security threat. So, for those who are interested in this research, we are open to discuss that. There will be no return on any investments, no tokens, nothing at all, other than maybe this research will help to create some breakthrough technology someday, maybe not. And I also ask you to visit this manifesto.ai and maybe sign it if you will agree with what it says. So let's trigger the sequence of events that will lead to something interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you for a very inspiring and provoking presentation in the same time. And I think it brought some questions So if some of you would like to ask, don't hesitate to raise your hand. If you still let me some time, I would like to ask myself. One of the projects you were presenting is called Prometheus,
Yeah.
and it seems you are quite far in terms of research of possibilities, and you have some proof of concept. So, what are your upcoming ambitions with this project?
What
Where you,
are, sorry?
the other ambitions for
Yeah.
future with this project, with this particular project, where you want to, what is the other roadmap for this project?
Yeah, well, this project is a part of that LNPBP technologies, and it also depended on other parts of this technological stack. So right now we are building layer 2 and layer 3 solutions, and on top of that we will be launching the computing network for decentralized machine learning, which will be scalable. That's the hardest problem, because right now with the current version of Prometheus we are still depending on Bitcoin transactions, and Bitcoin transaction they don't scale themselves. So will be putting that into side channels, into state channels, into side chains. And that part is being developed today. And again, when it will be launched, basically it will be a very cheap tool for doing machine learning stuff in decentralized and distributed, parallelized way.
Okay, thank you very much. Space for your questions. Please raise your hand.
So, about decentralized machine learning. So, this decentralized system will probably be more expensive than centralized system like AWS or Google Cloud. So, what is the typical use case for a decentralized system? Why would they pay more to run my code there rather than on AWS?
I wouldn't agree that it will be more expensive. I will explain why. It probably wouldn't. But even if it would be more expensive, the main use case is to do a censorship resistant computing. Because if you will be prohibited from doing some forms of computing, and machine learning will really, in a very short-term perspective, will become a national security threat, like atomic weapons. With each day of the progress in the artificial intelligence, you will see a more and more censorship. Today, we already have forms of self-censorship, like OpenAI. They developed some technology and then saying that they are not going to publish it because it can create a big problems to all the humanity. United States and Chinese governments saying that research on artificial intelligence is the national priority and national security priority. So the next step, they will be just regulating it. And at that point, you will have no choice other than to run into some decentralized, uncensored private environment, or not do that with Amazon. But it will be cheaper probably, because the resource base for these computations are personal computers. And those personal computers, as a capex investments, people already have them. And they are already maintaining them for the different reasons. So if they provide a spare time to do some computing, it will give them some return in terms of money, but just to cover electricity and something plus, but it still will be much lower expenses than a larger data center has today. So decentralized network is economically more efficient, especially if it has some lateral use like any computer has.
Gentleman in the first row.
Picking up on what you just said, Maxim, wasn't that somewhat of a similar promise with Bitcoin? As Satoshi said, one CPU, one vote. And then we later still see specialization in hardware, and especially the infrastructure of running the hardware. So how do you see this playing out compared to ASIC mining?
Well, it's different spheres. The actual plan at some point when the system will be operational is to create cheap nodes that are able to run this stack of decentralized protocols, starting with a full Bitcoin node, self-sovereignty boxes, full Bitcoin node, Lightning Network node, storage, which will be sold to third parties. So you will be earning money by having such box because you provide services to the centralized network and being paid with a Bitcoin. You will be routing Lightning Network traffic, and probably these boxes at some point will have a special machine learning processors, so they will provide computing. They will be as ASICs, but the idea that it's not a mining, it's a better than mining, because actually you do a useful work, or you earn some money, you buy this device for, I don't know, even $2,000, but if it earns you $100 to $200 each month, it's a form of investment. And it can be a very popular thing, so basically the more people will buy it, the more decentralized network will be. And just don't do as a miners, don't connect them to some pool. And you don't need to pool here because there is no proof of work, there is no benefits of assembling into a larger entities. So that's some initial ideas how it can be done.
Thank you very much. Please raise your hand more up. Thanks.
Thanks. So my question is related to LNP-BP. So this is a software layer, and do you think it's possible to go completely dark in terms of privacy before these chips with the neural networks, the brain on a chip? Because I don't think we can achieve the total privacy now, because we don't own our hardware. And until we do, it's not possible. So I think the most important question for the crypto anarchy right now is to somehow develop our own hardware that is verifiable through the crypto mechanisms.
What is the question?
Yeah, do you think we can achieve are you sure that the getting towards the complete darkness in terms of privacy is achievable now with the LNP-BP only? Because this is a software stack and we still need the hardware.
Yeah, well, technically you can do privacy in a lot of possible ways. So there is mathematics for doing that. We have sufficient amount of research, but in practice there is a lot of has to be done.
The thing is that right now in the CPU you can have a backdoor that just it has direct access to the random number generator. So what stops?
You mean that we need an open hardware
Yes,
standard?
we need complete open CPU that we control the hardware from the ground up.
Yeah, that's an actual problem, and this is very hard. There is no easy way to solve it because producing hardware is much harder than software. Maybe one of ideas, I'm not saying that it is the route forward, but we can start with a modern, unsecure and private way. Even if we will have a more efficient decentralized supercomputing, which is censorship resistant, it can be used to design open standards for hardware, because the next generation of hardware can be created open, but we wouldn't be able to replace the modern generation of hardware easily. It will take a lot of time. Fortunately, it still will be hard to censor through the hardware, much harder than through the software.
Thank you very much. We are running out of time, so I would like to thank you.
Thank you.
For your presentation. Thank you for coming. And
Thank you.
in 10 minutes, you can attend another lecture. Thank you.